I'm your father and have to pay child support for you so I can treat you however I want. Cast. Dad equals entitled wiener or entitled dad, SM equals stepmom who's bat crap crazy, mom equals my amazing mom, OS equals older sister same mom, MS equals middle sister, ES equals youngest sister, and me. Backstory about the cast. My mom and dad had older sister, then 5 years later me. Then mom and dad divorced since dad was a pepe and cheated. Dad got married to stepmom and had MS, who's 7 years younger than I, and then youngest sister as well a couple years later. Why I wrote this? So visiting my mom for the weekend and well old memories came back up, probably why my old home I grew up in doesn't feel like home. I'm 26 meters now and moved out for college when I was 18, have lived on my own for years now. Present day events. Also before I get into all of these memories I want to clarify a couple things. My dad was in an entitled PP growing but recently, probably because his new wife, whom you cheated on my mom with, and the reason why my mom divorced him when I was 1. My stepmom left my dad for a doctor who, let's just say, is paying for my 2 little sisters to go to any college they choose when the time comes. So he has started to realize that he's lonely and has no one because, well, he wasn't really a good dad to me or older sister. He was however a great one to middle sister and youngest sister, which was great because like yay glad he didn't treat them like older sister and I, but also hurt because why could he show us that affection? I digress. Anyway, now that he's alone he realized he messed up. He has tried to make amends with older sister and I, and we have at least a somewhat decent relationship now. Story. So growing up raised by my single mom, which was difficult as is for every single mom, she made the best of it. My dad however was a different story. Side note, my mom refused to influence older sister and I's opinions of our dad and allowed us to make our own decisions and opinions about our dad. She wanted us to choose to either see him or not on our own. My dad was the type that felt like older sister and I were made for him to have free labor whenever we visited him, either chopping wood, helping build something new around his house. He's a carpenter / woodwork. My dad also liked to act like he was paying us for doing these things by buying me a new Xbox 360 when it came out. Only it couldn't leave his place, so if I wanted to play had to go see him and do more free labor. He would also have us clean the house and babysit, which I didn't mind because they are my little sisters and I love them, but would suck because if I just wanted to kick back and play some games I had to play theirs, and I am 7 years older than middle sister, so I didn't want to play kids games but would because if I didn't they would tell dad I was being mean or calling them names and I would be punished equals abused physically or emotionally. He would also take me to work with him moving decking boards and other manual labor that he would pay middle sister and youngest sister for but not me nor older sister, so yeah, a little salty about that. His reason behind not paying us an allowance like the 2 younger ones was, well, I'm paying child support so that makes it even. He didn't pay child support for first 13 years of my life and then threatened to file for custody of me if my mom wouldn't sign off saying it's forgiving, which my mom, being the saint that she is, didn't want me to have to go to court to settle that matter, so she did. The other thing about my dad is that one time he had me cleaning his car and well, I dropped the rag, then cleaned it off because figure grass might scratch his car. He started yelling at me for making that mistake because I could have scratched his car, called it. Knowing that I'm about to be punished I just try to run inside, and as I'm doing such I yell, I'm calling my mom, I want to go home. He comes running up behind me and picks me up in a chokehold. I was 12. Throws me in a corner and says that he's my father and is entitled to punish me how he pleases and that he doesn't need my mom's help. After yelling at me for about an hour and a half, by yelling I mean throwing insults, calling me worthless, blah blah blah, he finally let me go, so I go back to my mom's and never said anything other than I never want to see him again. So what do? For about a year I would get home from school and call him, on days I'm supposed to see him for his custody whatever. I would call and say don't come get me and tell stepmom not to either. Then an hour later stepmom shows up, which it's 20 minutes from his place to mom's, and would try and guilt me into going over by saying she's already here and already used the gas money, and they need my help. I slammed the door in her face, which usually ended with her calling dad and him yelling at me over the phone till I would hang up and slam the door again. After a year, best year of my life growing up, I finally decided to give him another shot at redeeming himself. Big mistake. He sat me down and talked to me about why don't I want to live with him and he wants me to live with him and it's really nice there, blah, blah, blah. This took place months before I found out he wasn't paying child support. I finally snapped and told him exactly why I refused to live with him. I called him an entitled asshole who needed to grow the duck up because at times his 13-year-old son was more mature than him. Then I looked at stepmom and called her crazy and said that she could never be half the mother that my mom is. This pissed him off to a new level. Probably because I ruined his plan at never having to pay child support and getting free labor. So he snapped and just said, "If that's how you feel, bring up the papers, I'll sign away my rights to you as a father." In just a cold, serious tone. I was 13. Who says that to their 13-year-old son? I lost it and had my mom come pick me up, and I told her what happened. To this day she still believes that he only wanted me to live with him so they could save on the child support. Funny note. Also, finally note, his parents took me on a 3-week trip across the country and had an amazing time, but eventually I told them everything my dad did and they tore him a new one. Also, and probably one of my favorite moment from his parents. At my sister's college grad party, my dad say to my mom, "We did a good job." His own mother replies, "We? She did a good job," and pointed at my mom, giving her all the credit for how older sister and I have turned out. Here are a few things before I get into the story. The entitled kid is the main focus, but entitled mom still gets involved. There are a lot of people in this story, so here's the key: entitled kid, entitled mom, the thief, that one kid, is that not obvious? Mom, and nice friend, troop member. Now, on to the story. I'm a Boy Scout, and this happened on the crossover campout, which is a 2-night-long campout where you go from being a Cub Scout to being a Boy Scout. The camp was made for Cub Scouts, so it had things like a castle, a fort, and a pirate ship. The pirate ship, the castle, and a fire ring were all in the same area, and we were sleeping at the castle. Me and some other kids, including entitled kid, were at the pirate ship using sticks as swords. I was sword fighting nice friend when my stick broke, and there were no other sticks around, except what looked like a piece of bark and some dried mud. I had no other options, so I just tried the bark. It turns out that it was not bark, but a piece of ironwood in the perfect shape to be a role-play weapon. It could destroy other sticks with ease, and eventually, everyone knew it was mine. Some people were even saying it was too op to be allowed. That night, we had a campfire and ate s'mores, and I went to bed. When I woke up, I realized that I left the stick near the fire ring, so I went up to look for it. I couldn't find it, but I saw the thief and entitled kid suspiciously digging in some rocks. I hid behind a tree so that they wouldn't see me, but you know what they pulled out of the rocks? That's right. The same stick I have been looking for the past 30 minutes. I went over to confront them, and here's what the thief said: "I took it because entitled kid wants it, and he's my friend, and any good friend would do this." Well, actually, I found it, and I would appreciate if you would give it back. If you want, I can help him look for a stick, but ironwood is rare, and I don't want to give this away. I said. This is when entitled kid chimes in. "I don't want some common stick. They break easily. I want mine to be ironwood, and because you wouldn't share, we went back out after the s'mores to take it and hide it." Just BTW, I did share it with nice friend because he asked nicely. And entitled kid didn't even ask. They then ran off to the pirate ship, so I followed. Meet that one kid and friend. They were both at the ship when entitled kid got there, and so we all argued for a while. Me, "Give it back now." I tried being nice, but apparently, "You're just greedy." Friend, "Wait, you're stealing it? It's obviously Op's, he found it." That one kid, "I think Op should give it to entitled kid, Op got to use it yesterday." We argued for a lot longer, but you don't want to read it all. Eventually we all just did a tug of war with it, and me and nice friend won. Entitled kid, "You know what, I have an idea. Why don't we just whittle it, so that greedy little Op doesn't get it?" Friend, "Okay. I'll start whittling it. You guys should leave so that I don't accidentally cut you with the knife." And yes. Nice friend actually started whittling it. After that one kid, the thief, and entitled kid left, he told me to come back in. Nice friend, "Here, go and take it somewhere to hide it." I then went to hide it in some bushes when entitled kid spotted me. At this point we were alone, and me and entitled kid wrestled for it. I won, and then we were called for lunch. Entitled kid went immediately, but I may have hid it in another bush before eating. I went down to the castle to eat, and that's when entitled mom comes in. "You know, you little brat, everyone hates a greedy jerk like you." Yes, I know that I should be more respectful, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity. I guess that explains why your son is so unpopular. I then got my food and went up to the fire ring, where everyone was eating, but not before watching her smug expression turn into disgust. I finished my food early, and got troop member and nice friend together. I had a plan. Troop member went to talk to entitled kid as a distraction. Meanwhile, I went to get the stick, while nice friend followed me as a lookout. It worked. We were able to get the stick, and I ran into the castle, and I put the stick with my stuff. The package was secure. The rest of the campout was amazing. I even crossed over to Boy Scouts. The end though, was priceless. We were about to drive home, when I saw Entitled Kid. I got the stick out of my stuff, went up to Entitled Kid, and watched his face fill with dread as he realized that he had lost. While we were driving away, Entitled Kid started screeching at me like a toddler who was just locked out of his room by his cousin at a family reunion. I, however, just smiled the rest of the way home. Video on the screen tells the story of Entitled Mom breaking into police officer's apartment, and then he returns home.